Hey, what's up, y'all? We got this one on the Ouija board. I will be buying one in about a day and a half. So we're going to Ouija board challenge. So let's get into the history and the background of the Ouija board and what do's and don'ts and what you should and shouldn't do when you're not Charlotte. Let's get it.
There is no death. What seems so is transition. This life of mortal breath is but a suburb of the life Elysian, whose portal we call death. That's from Longfellow, the same legendary poet who wrote about the midnight ride of Paul Revere. In the 1800s, spiritualism and Americanism were intertwined in weird ways. Though what we call spiritualism started in the early to mid-1800s in Europe, seances, ghost stuff, etc., it really picked up in the US in the 1850s and 1860s. The Civil War caused around 1 million casualties, but more broadly, death was a constant. This chart shows life expectancy from 1850 to 1910. That jump in the chart, that's from 40 to just 50 years old. One response to that presence of death? Hundreds of spiritualism newspapers, like Banner of Light. It even had a column filled with messages that claimed to be from the spirit world beyond. This guy says there's a rum cellar. Sounds fun. The spiritual fixation endured. That Longfellow poem was the epigraph to a hit book in 1891, the best-selling There Is No Death. So where does Ouija fit in? For that, you have to go to the patent office. These are all talking board patents from the 1890s and 1900s. No, this one was French. This patent from 1891 is the direct ancestor to Ouija. Fittingly, the game has a murky origin, but Americans Elijah Bond and Charles Kinnard were behind this version. It has all of the ingredients. The board with yes and no, and a planchette. That's the name for the pointy thing that picks your letters. There are theories about the name. Some say it was for the novelist Ouida. That's O-U-I-D-A. Others claimed the board spelled its own name. But the most likely explanation is that it was Egyptian sounding, since that's how it was marketed and explained on that first patent. The next year, entrepreneur William Fuld patented his own talking board. But Ouija was the brand that took off, so Fuld and company bought it. The spirits pointed to profit. He fended off tons of competitors, including his own family members, and built a name. He had legal backing, like this 1915 patent, as Ouija took off. The spirit world finally had what had eluded it in life, a solid brand identity. When the Washington Times did a puff article on mental trouble in D.C., they didn't mention talking boards. They mentioned Ouija. When Pearl Curran claimed to have written novels by channeling her Ouija board. Wait, what? Yeah, that's what it says. Alright. She wrote under the name of the spirit she allegedly contacted, Patience Worth. She used Ouija. This brand kept Ouija going through the 20th century, along with Fuld's legal maintenance. The spirit world went corporate, further merging pop culture and the occult. Today, Ouija is a little horror, a little kitsch, and a little fun. There have been corporate shifts, but the board is a staple, which is a pretty impressive journey for a simple image and piece of plastic. That journey was powered by the beliefs of people like Longfellow and the mysterious forces of the United States patent system. And we are being spoken to, in a way, by people from the past. not through messages from the spirit realm, but through the history of a decorated piece of cardboard. Ouija might be overrated, and it's not real, but it might be saying something, too. There are many great Ouija stories out there. One of my favorites is that in 1921, William Fuld was forced to admit that Ouija was a children's toy. Still may be lingering around me to this day. This guide is purely for those of you that do not listen to my warnings and the people that are simply interested. This is my top 14 rules for playing with a Ouija board. Rule number 1, never play with the Ouija board alone. I have personally done this myself just to prove to myself that no one that was touching the planchette was moving it. It still works, and it leaves you much more vulnerable, so just don't do it. Play with 1 or 2 people. Rule number 2, do not play with this if you are depressed or mentally unstable. Demons can feed on negative energy and can come into your life much easier this way. That being said, I have also done this, and it is probably part of the reason I've had so many negative things happen in my life. Rule number 3, if you do let a demon in, immediately bless the house or have a priest come by before it gets worse. Rule number 4, do not treat the Ouija board like a game. Even if you're skeptical, treat it as if it is real. You can really piss off the dead this way. Rule number 5, never let the spirits count down through the letters and numbers. This is a bad omen, and it is said that they can come into our world this way. Rule number 6, if the planchette goes to all 4 corners, it implies that you have reached an evil spirit trying to get out. Rule number 7, do not let the planchette figure 8, as this is considered a bad omen as well, and the evil spirit is trying to get out. Rule number 8, you must close the portal each and every time you play, or the spirits or demons will linger and let themselves into your life. Rule number 9, do not become addicted to the Ouija board. This somewhat happened to me as I wanted to play with it more often, and more often talk to the spirits. Learning about the other side was very interesting to me. I truly believe this caused more harm by making it an addiction. Rule number 10, never trust any spirit. The evil ones will lie to try to make it look like they are not malevolent, but they are. So if you look for the signs to see that it may be an evil spirit, immediately say goodbye if it is. Rule number 11, do not burn a Ouija board. It is said that it will scream, and the ones that hear the scream have less than 36 hours to live. I cannot confirm this myself, but I'm not going to take the chance, as I know the power of the Ouija board personally. Rule number 12. The proper way to dispose of a Ouija board is to break it into 7 pieces, put holy water on it, and then bury it. Personally, I just threw mine away, and I never came back across it. Rule number 13. It is said that you never want to ask the Ouija board about God or when you will die. I've asked the Ouija board about God before, and usually it will mention God if it's not evil. That is actually a good way to find out if the spirit is evil or not. The evil ones will get pissed off, and the good ones don't mind talking about God. Rule number 14. Always light a white candle while you're playing with the board, and be respectful to the spirits you contact. White is the color of benevolence, and every dead person, or not, deserves respect until they disrespect you. Okay guys, that's all 14 rules that I have for you guys. I have personally used the Ouija board dozens of times. Most of the time bad things happen, but sometimes some fantastic things have happened, and honestly, for me, I would never take it back. I'm glad I did.
Hold on, yo. 1 second.
How to safely have a Ouija session. And the first thing I can think of to tell you guys is you are never, ever, ever going to want to play with a Ouija board alone. That is just not a good idea. It's very dangerous. When you're alone, you become far more susceptible to negative spirits and entities. It's just a bad idea. So my suggestion would be get a group of about 3 to 5 people. Yeah, you can do it with 2, but that's still a little iffy. 3 to 5 is going to be your golden ratio of where you...
Now, what do you think about a Satanist playing a Ouija board?
I don't think that.
Yeah, you do, because you was a bitch. You said, when you give them the blah, maybe weedy.
Like I said, it depends on the person.
The blah. And you can't even remember no good questions. You was like, am I going to be the 1970 Beyonce? You didn't answer no good questions, yo. We're going to be balling. How y'all used to say back then?
I don't know. To say what back then?
Oh, you was like, what, 10?
Yeah. We did a couple of times. Shit didn't move, so hey.
What y'all,
and I think,
But what was you expecting it to move for? Did y'all ask? You can't even remember. But what was you expecting it to move for? If you didn't ask you no good questions, it would have just...
it ain't about good questions, about questions. You ask a question.
And what happened? They give you...
I don't know. It didn't move. I don't know what you asked me for questions.
You supposed to move it.
You're not supposed to move it.
Yeah. You put your hands on it. You got it. The subconscious, your brain messages move it to a certain way.
Right. But basically, your hands are not supposed to move it. Okay. Anyway.
So,
anybody when they step away, I had nobody else to do it with. So, I mean, we probably only was time. Sheila wasn't there. She was in college.
Have for your session group, and of those 3 to 5 people, to not get things all mucked up and crazy and to have better chances of actually getting results, you're going to pick one of those people in the group, just one, who's going to be the leader of the session, and they're going to be the only one to ask the spirits questions. You can, whisper to the leader questions to ask, but they have to be the one that is the conduit to the spirits. If everybody starts yapping over each other, the energy is going to be weird. It's not going to work. And that leads into another point for having a good session. Y'all need to go in clearing your minds. I know it's hard to do. You think about lots of other stuff. You also think about what you want to hear from the spirits. Also, a lot of people they'll assume an answer they're going to get to a question. And Artemis, get out of that box. We got spirits, everybody. Anyway, clear your mind as best as possible. Don't be assuming answers, because that just will confuse the spirits, make things weird, and you may not get anything at all. So if you're actually serious, get a group of 3 to 5 people who are serious about it. Like, if you actually want to have a successful session, you need people who are actually in it and not just like, gonna mess with you and prank around. Like, you have to go in serious, with a serious mindset, serious intent. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. All these people like, oh yeah, we did this, nothing happened. Yeah, well, you went in like a complete circus, so what did you expect? So in your group of people, like, if you've got someone, say, who is uncomfortable being like super directly involved and just wants to observe, like, I totally get that. Like, you may be curious enough to want to watch a session, but you don't want to actually put your hand on the planchette and get yourself connected. You can have an observer and have them take notes on any answers you may get. That way, if you're trying to commune with a particular spirit or trying to get results or get a message passed along, it's helpful to have somebody who can write that down. That way you can look at that later and try and break it down on your own time. So there's still room for people who are too spooked to get involved, but just want to still be a part of the group, but not part of the session, So you got all your friends together. One thing that is good to know is you should find an environment where you are comfortable. Like, if you're all sitting on the hard floor, it's cold and uncomfortable, it's not going to be a good energy. So make sure wherever you are, you're comfy and everybody's relaxed. Again, the more stressed out and uncomfortable you are, the worse your energy is going to be. And you don't want to go into something connecting with other planes that potentially have bad things in there that feed on discomfort. So don't have an all-you-can-eat buffet sign before you even start. Make sure you're comfortable, which connects to another point, which we're actually going to... It's more of the what not to do thing, but this one is kind of hard because a lot of people don't have many choices. But my suggestion would be, if at all possible, don't use a Ouija board, don't have a Ouija board session in your own home for an abundance of reasons, and I'll touch on that later. But for now, we'll continue how to have a safe session. So try not to do it in your own home. And then next, we have purify the space first and possibly say a blessing. So anytime you go into stuff like this that could involve spiritual stuff and negative entities, this isn't required. This is my own personal what to do thing that I personally find to be helpful with any of this sort of spooky related stuff. Just whatever you personally find strength in, be it your different religions or, belief systems, all that, rely on that, purify the space, make sure it's a good energy, say blessing if you need to, just do what you can to prepare the space for the potential of bad things. So you've just got a safety net before you even start. I personally think it's better to, have all that taken care of, have the prevention set up so you don't need to do cleanup afterward if something bad gets in. Just let it not get in to begin with. Okay, so let's assume you're in a comfortable environment where it's safe to do so. You've got your 3 to 5 people. You're all set up. You've got your session started. What a lot of people mess up with in sessions is asking the wrong kind of questions. Don't ask things that there is no way that spirit would have any way to reasonably answer. Just because they lived in a certain era wouldn't mean they would know something happening the other side of the country, especially if you don't even know where specifically they come from. So just try and be reasonable with what you're asking. So start out wider with your questions, but not like crazy, and then slowly work to narrow it down until you figure out who exactly you are dealing with. Especially because if you're dealing with a younger spirit like a child, they may not understand adult things, and you just have to be really mindful, because if you pester a spirit with too many questions that it can't answer, it takes a lot of energy to manifest in any way and give answers. They're not going to waste that energy if they can't answer your questions, and if you ask too many questions they can't answer, they'll just leave. Artemis is channeling a spirit back there. What are you doing? So going and touching on something that will be in the second half of this video more in depth, just remember, once you have started a session, always keep at least one person in your group's hands on the planchette until you've closed out the session. Don't remove all your hands at once. That's not a good thing to do. So at least, I would prefer everybody not remove their hands if possible, but make sure at least one person that is connected to that session never take their hands off. That's very important if you want to have a good session. And then finally, of course, you always need to say goodbye. So you've had a good session, you've had lots of answers, you've kept your hand on the planchette. Finally, respectfully, thank the spirits for their time, and say goodbye and close it out properly, because you don't want to leave a portal open. That's not good business. So you do all those steps, follow all that carefully. Congrats! You have probably just had a successful, positive experience with the Ouija board, and you're one of the people that don't have a horror story to add to the abundant list. Now we're going to move to the second half of the video.